Welcome to Campus Culture. I'm Lamont Holden, aka TheLetterLBeats, professor of music, audio, and recording technology here at the University of Illinois. I'd like to welcome my co-host.
What's good, y'all? I'm Aniyha Jones, co-host of Campus Culture, and thank you guys for coming out. We appreciate you all.
Hey, so we're gonna welcome our special guest, a producer, engineer, DJ, and music industry guru who helped shape the modern mixtape industry and has worked with Freddie Gibbs, Gucci Mane, A$AP Rocky, Nicki Minaj, Young Dolph, and David Banner, to name a very few. Please welcome DJ Bourne One.
Hey.
Hey, thank y'all. Appreciate y'all for having me.
No problem, man. Thank you for joining us, brother.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I mean, we were just talking earlier out there. Welcome to Illinois. Welcome to the school. How you feeling? Like, how has this experience been for you?
Hey, it's been amazing. It's really been a blessing. It's honestly all kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of announced the pre-order for the Masterclass options, and then everything. He hit me up. He was like, I think the school might be interested. And then, like, very shortly after that, we had a class, Music Monetization 499, and then we were in it. And now it feels like I'm here, and, like, everything became very real very quick, you know? But it's cool because it makes sense because I've been pretty much teaching since I've been making music, and I'm 36 now, and I've been releasing music since I was 14, and probably making a living off of music since I was like 17 or 18.
Very dope.
And so it's cool to be able to pass down these lessons that I've learned, you know, both good and bad, and help, you know, kind of give people a leg up.
I think that's so good, and one of my favorite parts about this, I don't know if this is the right word to describe, but bittersweet for you, because just doing my research, you know, dropping out of college just because, you know, I didn't get into the school, I'm not sacrificing. And so I think that's just a testament, but my biggest question about that is, how do you know the difference between quitting and pivoting? And, like, how did you have that confidence to say, hey, I'm going to, like, follow my dreams despite, you know, having that deferred?
Well, I was already doing mixtapes. I already had Chicken Talk out at the time, you know, so they were like, I was trying to get into the music. I already had like an A average, and I was trying to get into the music program, and they were like, what instrument do you play? I was like, I got hot mixtapes, bro. You know, and they were like, get out of my office, you know? So it was kind of like, you know, I was really in history class. I was a history major, and I was just kind of sitting there in class, and I was like, you know, I don't want to just learn about history or just teach about it, because I was going to be a history teacher. I was like, I want to go visit the pyramids. I want to create history on my own and, you know, kind of have an impact myself. I kind of had that epiphany, and I was already doing mixtapes. And I was like, I literally walked out of the class, and I called my mom, and I was like, I'm dropping out. She was like, what? I was going to be the first one to graduate. And it just, at that moment, it wasn't right for me. So for me to come back, it's like, look at how times have changed. You know, it's like, I couldn't play an instrument then. Now I can now. But now we have like this whole, this opportunity to create like this modern curriculum for the new, you know, like the modern producer, composer, engineer, and artist.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's ironic because of the work that you and I are doing here now. Students can get in with the dope mixtape. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think like at the time I should have said my instrument is a computer.
Yeah.
It still wouldn't have got me in, but
Yeah.
But you know that really I feel like is my thing. And then I kind of like I mess around with other instruments and kind of play around. But you know, it's like it's a different world now.
Yeah.
You know, like the computer is an instrument, and being able to put it all together is just as valuable as being able to recite something. And then with the class, we're showing how to make money off of everything you're doing with music, you know, whether you want to do, you know, kind of like reciting and playing the orchestra, or you want to compose and score or do modern pop music.
Yeah.
I got a question, because like you were here yesterday speaking to students in that classroom filled at the music school.
That was
and
amazing.
it was like that was good.
It was so fun.
And I think my question for you, like if you were in admissions, right? Let's turn this over. Let's talk about what would make a qualified candidate for you, or what are you looking for? You know, since you were on the other side of that.
Looking for in
The application.
Oh, to the program? We just want people that care. You know, the whole reason why I'm doing this is because I've done workshops, and you know, I've done a lot of things to teach, and the worst thing to me is when people don't care.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, I only want the people that care. If you care, then we can work with that. You know, it's like if you want to work hard and you know you're not afraid of doing the work, we can work with that. You know, if you want to, because this whole program is about self-empowerment. You know, it's like taking all the power onto your own shoulders and knowing your rights and all that. And so, it's just somebody who's focused on creating their own way. And I think that's most people these days, you know, and they're trying to, you know, I think basically before it was kind of like this pie in the sky dream to be an artist and live an artist life. And I've been saying it's kind of like if you were telling your parents, if they asked you, what do you want to do for a living? You're like, I want to win the lottery. It's not really like, it doesn't sound like a plan. But now we're showing through music monetization. There was a kid playing jazz piano earlier today in class. And I was telling him he could play at a jazz club, you know, a couple nights a week. He could teach piano lessons.
Right.
He could he could create a sample pack. He could work with producers. He could score. I counted off like 17 ways he could make money off of what he's doing. But each of them require their own discipline of like learning it, and then they each require their own business, you know, their own lane of like how do you conduct business in this way, and they've all got their own kind of unwritten rules. You know, like working in a club isn't the same as composing, isn't the same as releasing your own music. It's completely different considerations and wildly different contexts. And so we're trying to prepare people for everything.
Yeah.
That's good. Enough about school, though, and U of I. Let's talk about your first classroom. Super sounds. Give me the first, I don't know, word that comes to mind when I say that for you.
Informative. Informative, because I had like OGs around me who were playing me good music, and it helped really inform my taste. And then honestly, it kind of is the framework and the foundation for my approach to making music, because people would come in and they would say, what's hot? And I would have to say, who's hot? I'd say X, Y, and Z, and they'd say, why? And I don't think a lot of people think of why they make music. Why are you releasing music? Are you filling a void in the market? Are you bringing something different? Or are you just doing music? You know, and so my whole concept of making music has always been, I want to make music that, I want to hear, and I feel like will matter. You know, it's kind of like when I found Gucci, I was like, this is something different. You know, it's kind of like the Joe Pesci of rap. Like, it's funny and he's mean, you know, but it's like very entertaining. And, you know, I know at the end of the day, music falls under entertainment. And so I'm like, if I'm, you know, kind of entertained by him, same thing with Young Dro. I'm like, he's so funny. He's like a cartoon character. He's larger than life. And then Pierre, I just saw he was like dope and he was hardworking. And as soon as I told him, you know, don't sample, he really just went, you know, all in on making original beats and kind of like watch what we were doing. And it's dope being able to help people and watch them, you know, like Pierre's like one of the most influential producers of the last 5 years. Gucci, one of the most influential rappers of the past 10 years. To be able to say I had a hand in that and help guide him along in even a small way is really dope.
That's good.
Yeah, I'll say I was teaching beat making classes at a local high school here, right? And it was right in the middle of when we were planning this whole thing, right? And you talk about Pierre a lot. And I'm sitting there and the kids just start talking about Pierre Bourne. I'm just sitting there losing my mind. Like, I know the guy that, you know, discovered him and kind of groomed him and kind of helped him find his lane. So it's just kind of weird, like how those full circle moments happen, you know what I'm saying? So
it's really dope when it happens like that.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It's kind of like chicken talk. Like, you can't, you know, plan these things to happen. All you can do is kind of like go off your own intuition, go off what you like, and then put your best foot forward.
Yeah. All right, so we know how you started, and let's take a look at where you are now. Most certainly here at U of I School of Music, we can see what your value is to us, right? So my question is, you know, what is the value to you for teaching this class here?
To be able to help the world have better music, you know, first off, and equally also to help artists know their rights and know what is possible and what they can do, because I think a lot of people don't know what's capable. If you don't travel out of your city, you don't understand, you don't have that perspective, you know. I've traveled a lot. I've come from the world of retail. I've A&R'd, I've done internet marketing, I've done mixing. I've literally seen it from every side, from like picking beats for artists to creating beats and trying to get them placed, getting stuff in soundtracks. And so I feel like I have a very well-rounded viewpoint. And so to be able to share that and again, like help people create better music and be better informed, make better decisions, be healthier. You know, like people will run you into the ground and work you to death and replace you. You know, it's like you have to take care of yourself, and a lot of people don't understand that nobody, you know, most of the time nobody's gonna sit you down and be like, sleep. You know, they're gonna be like, man, we gotta work, we gotta, you know? And so it's like, you know, kind of telling you like a lot of this stuff is on you, and so if you're aware of that, you can move accordingly. You know, I think that's kind of a lot of what this is prepping people to be like, this is what's coming up. You know, it's like saving people from sending off their stems before there's a business arrangement. Very simple things like that, like don't send off your tracks of, you know, just your kick, snare, like the file separated before you have some type of an agreement. Otherwise, you'd be giving away your power. They can make the song sound as good as they want, and then you'll just have to like battle it out in court or something. Like, you know, like, you know, like nobody's really taking these majors to court like that, you know, so you just complain on the internet or, you know.
That's really good. And the question I have, you talked about prioritizing sleep. And I think one of the biggest things, like, you know, we see artists up in the studio all the time, all day, and it's super normalized. And I remember Cole talked about an important conversation that Pharrell had with him. Like, you don't need to be in the studio all night. Couple hours, go spend time with your fam, you know, etc. When you're, for these artists out here who are just getting into the business, who may be afraid to say no, who want to sacrifice sleep just so they can get the opportunity, what would you tell them?
In the beginning, you're probably gonna have to.
Okay.
You know, let me go against what I just said. In the beginning, you might have to. You know, you got to pay your dues. It's called paying dues. And so, in whatever way, you know, don't do it unhealthily. But you know, you're gonna have to work hard. You know, you may be underpaid. You may have to, you know, work your way up. What was the question one more time?
No.
I'm sorry. I had a thread and I was like.
You're good. Just basically, like, what would you tell them for people when to say no? How do they know? You know, why should they if they're afraid to lose?
Well, we have a whole section of music monetization about knowing your worth. And so it's like you have to be able to gauge at what point in your career you're at, what decision makes most sense for you, and that's what we're trying to inform people.
So a lot of, you know, how I operate and the things I decide to do stem from the fact that I left this area, Champaign, Urbana area, to, you know, pursue a career in the music industry in Atlanta, right? And so now here in 2022, what we're trying to do partly is, you know, eliminate people having to move to a certain city, right? So when it comes to like a LA or an Atlanta or a New York City, what does it mean to the music industry now? And if you can't get to those places, how can you get around that obstacle?
That's what we're trying to teach in the class. You know, it's like how to be able to get it from anywhere. Like a big thing with me is when I had my first child, I said I didn't want to have to travel and go get the money. And so I kind of started developing ways to make money from the house, whether that be mixing and mastering, whether that be sample packs, whether that be anything, just sending out more beats from the house. Just kind of understanding like, all right, I'm not gonna be working so hard to get in studio sessions, so I'm gonna work extra on just sending out beats. You know, that kind of concept. And so that's what we're trying to show in the classes, like different ways from the house through different online communities, whether it be Discord, Twitter, different things, how to get into these communities, how to provide value and make yourself, you know, kind of a thing. Like the whole thing is what I keep telling people is if you do something notable, people will care and they'll come to you. You have to kind of make them come to you. Like there's you asking for help, and then there's you like kind of proving your value in the world in a certain way, you know. And so kind of like when I did Chicken Talk, people were like, oh, okay, and then I did another one. They were like, oh, okay, and then I kept going, and they were like, all right, you know. And so I want to show people that the consistency and quality is what people are looking for. You know, people know when they open a Coca-Cola, it's gonna have that quality of taste. Like, you know, you never really get a Coke unless it's from a machine that tastes really different, you know. You have that consistency and quality, and so it's the same thing. You're building your brand with the quality of work that you put out.
So speaking of streams of income from home and being able to get services from home, you were talking earlier about engineers. I thought that was interesting, right? Can you talk a little bit about that? Yeah,
so Engineers is a platform that mixed by Lee. He's Kendrick Lamar's engineer. He mixed most of Kendrick Lamar's album, I think all of them. He mixed SZA and really everybody, YG. But he created a platform which is basically kind of like reinventing the way artists and engineers work together. So artists are able to find quality mixers on there, which is a big problem I find with people. They're like, I'm like, your music sounds bad. They're like, I don't know any mixers. So now it's like, you don't have that excuse. You can go on there and everything, as opposed to being like, we're talking on text and you email a file, the file comes through, we transfer, then we're emailing the references back and forth just through regular email. It's like everything is condensed into just their website. And so all the files come through there, all your contacts are in there.
That's convenient.
And it's kind of like I think the artist put down the money, but the mixer only gets half. And then when the mix gets approved, the mixer gets the other half of the money. And so it's kind of like a safe thing for both sides on that for if you don't know each other. And then now they got this new thing with financing. I think you can finance up to like $3,600 over like 36 months, which is like, it's really taking away everybody's excuse for saying, man, I can't afford it. It's like, well, if you want to work, you can finance it, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, if it's worth it to you. And so we're trying to like show people like when to make that move. You know, it's like if you're at that time of like making this music sound really good is where I need to put this money, that's where it needs to be spent. If you need to be getting ready first and getting the music even to the point, making music that's worth it to even mix. You know, it's like if the music isn't dope, the mixing isn't gonna help it.
Exactly.
You know, it's like you need to make music worth caring about. And so that's also too, like we talk in the master class about what is a dope sample? Kind of like the concept of like what is dope music? You know, taste, and I kind of like point out different references of different songs and kind of the thought of how we make music, how we flip songs.
I kind of roll my eyes when you're saying that because I can't count how many emails I get from people trying to skip beat making one, right? And it's just like, then they get in the beat making one, and I'm telling them all this stuff, well, I don't know, because you skip, or they get in the beat making two, don't know what I'm talking about, so you skip beat making one, I don't know what to, like nobody, I had a lot of people questioning me about it because I'm changing my policy. Like when the French teacher says you got to take French 1 first, there's a reason for that, right? And so just developing that pedagogy.
Well, everybody thinks they're more advanced than they are. And I was just talking with Paul. I got Paul Diaz from Tree Sound here with me. And, you know, honestly, I was more attracted to the advanced stuff before the basics. And because I didn't go through school, I didn't get the basics myself first. And so I've learned like really advanced techniques and kind of worked my way backwards through some of the basics. And so that's another thing we're teaching too, is like just learn the fundamentals. That way you have a foundation to build off of.
So, and then speaking of which, right, so it's one thing to know something really well and practice it and do a good job of it, but how do you know when you're ready to teach it? How do you know when you're able to teach it?
As soon as I was getting information, I was teaching. But as far as like offering it as like a class like this, really now, you know, it's like at a point of where you're like, I've been teaching. I was just saying I met with the owner and creator of Ableton the other day, Gerhard Bells, and the creator of The Push, Jesse Terry, and it was really cool. And within like 5 minutes of talking with the guy from Ableton, he was like, "You're a teacher." Because I was just telling him everything we had going on, and I was like, I have been kind of doing this for a while, and we do have a class. And, you know, it's like everything kind of hit me all at once. I'm like, okay, maybe this is kind of a thing. But I realized in the studio, ever since I've had anything, I've always been teaching people how to do stuff. You know, when I was getting on chat rooms early online, I was helping other people get on that. Now, all the way up until now, I was on NFTs like 2 years ago. I've been trying to onboard everybody onto that, and it's like dragging everybody, like, come on, artistic freedom, come on.
So speaking of which, because we had an NFT, because we know, you know what I'm saying, you always on the next wave, right? And we know the NFTs are the next wave, right? So I guess the question is, why are people afraid of NFTs, and what would you tell somebody who's trying to get into the NFT game?
People are afraid of what they don't know. And it's such a deep subject of the blockchain, Ethereum, Bitcoin, all this, and people have these preconceived notions. It took a while for me to really like want to learn, and then once I really started learning, it really took, you know, probably like a month or two to really sit down and understand everything. I think as far as artists, I think you should do your due diligence and kind of understand everything as far as what it entails, what are the benefits, which is artistic freedom, connecting directly with the consumer, because you don't have to have a middleman. You can connect directly with people, and so that's a big thing. You know, I would say just do your research on that, and then figure out how you can apply it. Like for me, it was finding visual creators and saying, hey, I want to score your pieces, and so I had to send out cold emails not emails, but DMs for eight months. Cold DMs like, hey, I love your work, which I did. Yeah, I only had people I liked. Hey, I like your work. I would love to score one of your pieces and release it as an NFT. And either got negative responses or no responses for 8 months. And then finally, this artist, Visuals by Sam from London, hit me back. And she was like, yeah, she'd made this picture move. And I scored it, looked at it and scored it. And we put it up and sold it for like 0.5 Ethereum, which is probably like 1,200 or something like that. And she immediately sent me the money and everything was done. And I was like, you know, and we figured out like, okay, we're gonna have a 10% royalty, and we're like, okay, if this sells again for 100 Ethereum and whatever, say the price goes up on it, like our value goes up in this piece, instead of 0.5 Ethereum, they sell it for 100, we get 10% of that. And say if it sells again for more, we get 10% of that. And because of the blockchain, the money is immediately split up and goes directly to everybody's cryptocurrency wallet.
So you did your own research, you created your own framework for practice, you crafted your own business model, you created the product, and then you sold the product.
Yeah, so we did that one, and then that opened the floodgates, because now we've sold one, and now instead of me chasing people, they're like, oh, you sold one, I want to work with you. Music guy, which we didn't even think about music and NFTs really, because we also dropped the first NFT drum kit. So in February last year, we dropped the first NFT drum kit, Genesis. That was pretty cool. And we're still waiting on people to catch up. You know, it's like, it's one of those things that people are slowly catching up on. But once we did that one with Visuals by Sam, then everybody was open to us. And so again, kind of make them come to you. So I totally had to just humble myself and say, everything I've done doesn't matter in this space. If you're big enough, it does. You know, the big artists, you can come in as a celeb. I'm not that level. So it's like, I had to like rebuild myself from the ground up. And I just humbled myself, and I was like, I'm gonna get in it. I get very like headstrong about things, and once I put my head on, I'm like, I'm gonna do it, and then I do it. And so it's just been cool to see that through. And after that, we released a lot more. We sold probably like 35 NFTs.
That's dope. That's dope.
In the year past that, you know, so it's pretty cool.
So you was talking about the one, because you did super reach. You was pulling up tweets and all types of stuff, you know what I'm saying? So he was talking about a quote he said about the one. Can you repeat that for me?
Yeah, so basically, you know, you talked about you don't want to teach people how to be just another producer or a different producer, but to be the one. What's the one? Like, how do you know?
To be yourself. You know, not to be another producer to try to chase another sound. Like, you can emulate your heroes at first, but you have to find your own sound. I want people to feel comfortable and strong in themselves and kind of what they bring, because I feel like people are like, how did you do it? I'm like, I really just went with my intuition, my gut, and just made stuff I wanted to make.
Yeah.
And other people are like, but everybody wants to hear this. You know, and people play me beats, and they're like, man, this is just some stuff, you know, it's like on the radio. I'm like, why are you even playing me this beat if you don't like it? You know? And it's like, I can feel the energy of people, and they don't even like their own beats, like, if they think you're gonna like it. Sometimes I like, play me the beats you like, and I'm like, that's way better, you know? And I'm like, why didn't you start playing me that, you know? And they're like, you know, well, I thought you wanted to hear this. I'm like, why are you thinking you know, it's like people I feel like are trying to like think what do people want as opposed to more of the why. Like I said, as opposed to what. Like, nobody knows what people are gonna like, but it's like, why? It's like, is the beat jamming? Is it a great song? Is the arrangement fire? Is it bringing something new to the table musically? Is it, you know, speaking on a topic? Is it, you know, it's like, what's the purpose of the song? Why?
I know that this is something I struggle with, especially in beat battle situations. And I had, you know, because we're about to have a beat battle here, finals in a minute, right?
Hey.
We've selected our finalists.
Got some
so many students in the last 2 days before the deadline were like, what should I play him? What does he want to hear? What do I used to struggle with like beat selection. Like my own friends, we go to beat battles, they'd be like, but why didn't you play that one? I don't, like, what is a rule of thumb when selecting beats to press play for somebody?
Beat battles are different than playing artists for songs.
Okay.
Know the difference. You know, the context is everything. Like in a beat battle, you want the beat to be the whole song, essentially. And you want it to be big and come in quick, like no long intros. I hate when people play like, it's like a 30-second long intro. You're like, you only had 45 seconds on the beat. The beat dropped. They're like, man, if you'd have waited till a second verse, it's like, come on, you know, fix your arrangement. What was the other question? Sorry.
I don't know, we can skip it. What did I say?
I got one though.
Go ahead.
You're talking. Oh, and then knowing the difference between, you know, like
yeah.
with the artist, you know, you need to leave room for the artist's voice. Yeah. A lot of people, you know, if you play a beat battle beat for an artist, a lot of times that doesn't translate because you filled up the beat too much and the artist can't find their pocket on it. Somebody like Drake says he doesn't rap to the beat, he raps in between the kicks and the snares. And so it's like the artists are finding the pocket of the beat to fit into. And if it's like a bunch of sounds and a bunch of counter melodies and stuff, you know, you need to leave it kind of open. And then also switch up your arrangements. I think people's arrangements are really boring, you know? Spice up your arrangements and come with something different. I mean, it's part of what we're here for, to kind of like challenge people. Even myself, of like, let's do something fresh and different. Like today, we had like 3 people playing the piano at the same time, 2 guitarists, everybody kind of like snapping and clapping.
Snapping, percussion.
And it was all recorded on like a little Zoom recorder, and then I sampled it into MP and just made a super dope beat off of it. You know, it was like, a very random way of making it, but it came out so dope. You know, it's about having fun.
The way it came out, if you'd told me, y'all sampled this from a record, I'd be like, I wouldn't have questioned it. You know what I'm saying? So that's pretty dope.
I was playing the beat, and he didn't know what it was. He was like, what's that? I was like, that was what we just did. He was like, I had to solo it. He was like, oh, man.
Yeah.
I got a question though, just to play like devil's advocate. So you talked about originality, trusting in who you are and your self-belief, but another thing that I feel like have to be in tune with is adaptability. Sound changes in music all of the time. How do you know kind of the fine line between staying original to yourself, but also just being in tune with the consumer? Because I mean, ultimately, you know, that's who you got to pay attention to. You
have to stay up to date, and you can't be like rigid in your thoughts. Like Paul would say, when people were transitioning from tape to Pro Tools, everybody who didn't want to transition to Pro Tools got left behind. And, you know, it was like, you have to stay up to date. And so part of our job as creators in dealing with technology is to stay up on the latest and the greatest and figure out. I'm constantly trying to figure out different ways to use technology to create. And now they got like generative computer music and all types of stuff. It's like a whole new world.
Yo, you use that phrase, future retro.
Oh, retro future.
Retro
yeah.
future, yeah. Like something old, something new, because people still want that familiar thing to latch on to.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, I just love the juxtaposition in records, you know, that contrast of something that sounds really, really old and like a vinyl, you know, something really old and then something brand new.
Yeah. So Aniyha said something that kind of blew my mind in pre-production I hadn't thought about, right?
What'd I say?
So, because one of the things that's been really influential to us that we talked about on the last podcast was the Kanye Genius documentary, right?
Yeah.
And she was talking about how Coodie found Kanye so early in his development, and she kind of likened that to the way you found Gucci so early in his development. Like, what would you say to that comparison between Coodie and Kanye and you and Gucci?
I don't know. I went there for that. You know, it's like I can't. You know, and I don't really know. I know with Gucci, I was able to help figure out, kind of give him a vessel for getting his music out and connecting directly with people. You know, I don't know specifically about them, but that was really my role of just saying you can really connect directly with people. It's funny, I'm still preaching the same message now with NFTs.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you have to stay up on this technology and keep up with what's current. And if you have other friends that are doing the same thing, like I had a motion graphic designer homie named Bananakin, who was the one that put me up on the NFTs. And I was like, you know, but it's like you have to have, you know, staying up to date. You know, a lot of people don't want to adapt, or they just say, oh, new music's not good.
Yeah.
And it's like my whole purpose here is not to complain about modern music. It's to say some of it's dope and we can make a lot of it better, and here's how. You know, I always want to come with the solution and not just complain.
And so you made a huge time and personal sweat equity investment in Gucci. How did you know it would pay off? Did you care if it would pay off? Did you even see it like that?
I had no idea. I was just doing stuff. You know, like I said, I just liked his music, and then we just did it, and it just happened to blow up. And it was the same thing with Young Dro. Like, I literally went to the studio 30 days in a row. He just told me, come up there. I was like, let's do the tape. He was like, just come up here and meet me. I didn't have his phone number or nothing, so I just get off after school and sit up there and wait at Grand Hustle and be like, I hope he shows up. And most of the time he did. You know, we were able to come out with the tape. But I think it's just one of those things where if you would do it for free, you know, you probably should just go ahead and invest that time into it and do it for free and put your money where, you know, put your effort where your mouth is. And, you know, I think a lot of people want certain things, but they don't want to put the effort behind it. You know, it's like I see people complain about not succeeding in NFTs. I'm like, well, have you DM'd people for 8 months? Have you really, you know, it's like, what effort have you put in behind this? Because if you just minted something, posted it on your Twitter, and we're hoping people are going to buy it, that's not telling a story, that's not creating a roadmap. You're not understanding of what people are wanting.
Yeah. One thing, because I keep noticing, the thing that keeps coming up is you have this passion for process. You know what I'm saying? Like, when did you know that?
I don't know. You're just saying it now, and I'm just kind of, I was like, yeah, kind of I do. I don't know. I don't know. I think once I understood, I didn't think I was an artist, and then I started making beats, and I was like, oh, and then I started shooting videos, and I was like, oh, you know, it's kind of like, made me realize, like, if you're creative on one aspect, you could be creative in anything else, and once you kind of understand how to master what it takes to master one thing, you realize it's just time invested, caring, immersion in that subject, and then you'll be able to understand the concept. And so I'm really enjoying, I love like immersing myself and learning something and then sharing it. So teaching really comes natural. Like, all this is natural to me for me to learn all this and be like, yo, y'all come this way, like, check this out. Like, that's just naturally my energy anyways. I'm always calling the homies and being like, yo, and I promise you, I've been trying to put people on NFTs for 2 years, and there's people who've made a lot more money than us off of it that I've helped put in the game, that I've invited to marketplaces and stuff that are private, and that makes me so happy. That makes me even happier than me doing crazy great, which we've done pretty well, but instead of me being like, oh, I'm $1 million off of it, seeing other people do really well and see their whole life circumstances change, that makes me so happy, and then be like, oh yeah, you invited me and you put me up on this, or, you know, that means the world to me. So I'm excited to see some success stories come out of these classes and see people, because like we had Sync Week 2 weeks ago in music monetization. I think that was week 9. If I was the students, I'd be taking that advice and sending stuff off and, you know, following up on it, finding these sync companies, and I gave a lot of game in there.
Yeah. So, you know, how do you build communities around your music and get people to trust in your vision?
You find where people are, first off. You know, at first it was the CD store for me, and then it was online. You know, and so you kind of find where people are. Maybe it's an actual place in your city or something online. And then you find people that care about the things that you care about. We go over it in the class, but you want to find people that care about the things you care about, and kind of, you know, it's like none of my friends really care about sports. You know, it's like that doesn't impact our life at all. Not saying it's a problem if it does yours, but that doesn't affect our bottom line. We're trying to impact the world and do things, release music, make great music, teach other people. You know, like the effect of a game outcome on our life doesn't really matter. And so me and the people that I work with, none of us are ever like, I'm never calling them when they're like, I'm on the game or I'm on whatever. It's like always a beat playing when I call Ricky. He's either with his family or he's making a beat. You know what I'm saying? Walt, same thing, doing the family or he's making music, you know? And it's like, this is what we do.
Oh, go ahead.
I got something. So just speaking of, you know, you talked about the beginning, taking it back to what Elle said, the process. I don't believe there's a good interview without getting something that you haven't said anywhere else. Tell me about just those stories at the flea market with Gucci, Discount Mall. Tell me about Chandler Road. Like, give me a story that a lot of people don't know.
Well, a lot of people know the Discount Mall story. You know, basically like when we had first came out with the project, we went to the Discount Mall. I know one story that I did tell. I've been told before. I'm trying to think of an acceptable story to tell on this platform. It was kind of wild, you know. It was cool, you know. It's like, and that's one of those things too of like, there's no rules, there's no guardrails in this world, you know. And it's like, my dad luckily gave me like common street smarts, and so I was able to move around and go to Sun Valley or be on Old National or go to these different places. You know, like my parents the other day were just telling me, we found out you went to Greenbrier, and you know, like we were so mad. They thought I went one time. I'm like, I used to go there after every Wednesday after school. You know, I go like every day I get out of school and drive around 285, and you know, it's kind of like my thing to just go into areas that most people won't go, and I'd be by myself. But I was street smart enough, you know. He kind of told me, you know, if anything's going down, if you feel like anything's going down, get out of there. And that was kind of my thing, you know. It's like I would kind of just pay attention, look alive, and like feels like it was going down. I'd be like, you know, and it's like, you know, you have to help yourself sometimes. But I was able to navigate through all that, luckily. And I think a Gucci story, you know, honestly, Gucci, the biggest thing about working with him was his work ethic. You know, there was times where we would go to, you know, maybe the strip club, and then we'd come back to the studio for like, I did a studio in R&B, and we'd come back from 2 till 6 or 7 in the morning, and I would just pull up beats, and he would just rap. From the beginning of the beat till the end, till it went off, and he'd be like, pull up the next one. And he wouldn't mess up one time, and he was snapping.
That's insane.
You know, it was really like a savant type thing, you know, like you're like, you play a beat, he raps for like 3.5 minutes, and you're just like, you're like laughing at the lines, and you're like, he's going crazy. And then he'd like, pull up another one. I'm like, you just rap for 3.5 minutes. Pull up another one, it's 4.5 or 5 minutes. And he keeps going again, you know? And it's just like seeing how much fun he was having. That's why I tried today. I was like, let's just have fun. Like everybody's kind of a little tense. And even same thing we were talking about performers. Like the best thing to do is to break that tension between you and the crowd.
Yeah. You've seen a lot of talented people since you've been here. Can you think of a performance? Can you think of a moment so far that stood out to you that's really like, yo, that was really dope?
Man, last night the beatboxer was dope. The rap performances were dope.
Yeah.
The guys playing the hand drums and the Moog. I was like, what is this going on? It was like, and they're like a jazz Latin fusion thing or something. Like, oh man, it was really dope. And then today I was just getting weird. Yeah. That was really fun. I always like just creating something and it being like really random. And it was cool seeing how if you don't guide it, it's an absolute mess. Like when we first started playing and everybody's soloing at the same time. Everybody's like, no. It sounded like we were warming up. I was like, no, together, you know? And I had to like slow down and be like, guitar player, give me the rhythm. He's like, chunk, chunk, chunk. And then we, you know, it's like everybody's like, I'm like, watch him. So the piano players turned around because they couldn't see, turned around. And it's kind of like these basic things of being like, how do we work together and kind of form a unit in a collaborative form? It's like to me, collaboration is a very natural process. But like you were saying, a lot of people, it doesn't come naturally to, and they kind of wonder like, where do I get in? How do I add to this or whatever? And I think that's a big thing is knowing how to run point when you need to. I was always a good team player. I always played a lot of team sports, and I always was the first person to hop up and be like, if I didn't see somebody hopping up, I'd be like, all right, y'all, let's do this. You know, and it's like, I've always just still kind of been that way, and I kind of want to show other people, be that same way. You know, if you need to be the role player, you know, if I need to be a role player in the situation I am, but if things are kind of like waning and we're doing something boring, I'm like, hey, let's
That's what else makes you a teacher.
Let's fix this, you know?
Just that observation and kind of having a sense when people need like direction. You know what I'm saying?
That's what we're here for, bro. Giving direction every time. That's literally why I'm doing the classes, because I realize regardless of what people need, their advancement level, direction is what everybody needs. Yeah. It's like everybody, maybe even people with the energy and the hustle, it's like if you hustle and go completely over here and the target's over here, it's like, you know, all movement isn't forward progress.
Yeah. Such a random thought, but I remember, so you were talking to Ethan Simmons from the News Gazette.
That was awesome.
You said Grand Hustle. I thought for a second, I said, man, you better explain what Grand Hustle is. And then you kind of looked at me. You said, all right, do you know what Grand Hustle is? He's like, no. You know what I'm saying? So just in that.
That blew my mind. And no knock against him, but just the fact of like how everything is relative. You know, to me, it's like, see, I was one of the forefathers, really the forefather of trap music. You know, it's like Grand Hustle's his label. It seems like that's such a huge thing in my world. But, you know, up here, it's like if you miss that time period, you wouldn't know.
Same thing, like what you said with sports. You and your friends don't talk about it?
Oh, right,
Same
yeah,
thing with
right.
BTL.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, even in just like having spent those 4 years in Atlanta and then coming back here, you realize how wide the cultural gap is. And I'm thinking about people who read the News Gazette, I'm thinking about, they ain't gonna know who Grand Hustle is, right? But for me, like that was like part of my coming of age, you know what I'm saying, in this culture. So Last question for you, and then we'll take some audience questions. Shouts out to Dr. Cruz in the audience. I see you.
Hey.
One of the homies, one of the folks responsible for us being able to do this here. But you sent a tweet asking artists why they create, right? Why do you create?
Because I have to, man. It's like oxygen, bro. You know, it's like literally, and somebody was saying, how do you do so much? I'm like, I literally sometimes have to refocus myself, either step outside, do some yoga in the sun or something, and then come back in and I have to make a beat. I have to make a beat. And it's like, as soon as I make a good beat, whether it takes 20 minutes or an hour, then I feel like, I'm a whole person again. You know, I'm a creative being, and then I can get back into it. Because a lot of it is arduous, tedious. You know, it's like in the weeds, and not all of it is the most, not necessarily inspiring, but you know, if you worked on a song for 6 months and somebody's like, hey, make this change, you're not like rushing to, you know, you're not rushing to do it. And so if I make a beat, then I'm back in a good mood. And I'm like, I'm a creative person. Let me knock this out and I can just go on about my day. And it just puts me in a good headspace. But honestly, creating is my therapy. You know, it's like, instead of like going to, maybe sports is therapy for some people, like you were saying, it's like, to me, creating and just releasing whatever I'm feeling. Like, I love just improvising. Like, I'm not like super into music theory. I try to learn as much as I can, but just my plan, I'm not heavy on the theory. But I'll just play some stuff of whatever I feel. And it was funny, the jazz pianist kid earlier, he was like, yo, that's really cool what you're playing. I was like, what am I playing? You know? He's like, oh, you got this over here and that. I was like, well, yep, I knew that, yep. You know, but I don't know what to talk about, but yeah, it's just a good time.
Why do you create? But
oh, right, yeah. So why I create, it's just, you know, it's just, I have to. It's like, why do we do what we do? Why am I teaching? Why am I doing any of this? I have to learn the knowledge, and then I have to share it. It's just kind of, it feels like just the path, and it's just what, I'm honestly, it's just, I can't help it. I really can't help it. Like, even if I had nothing to do and I wasn't here, I would be telling somebody, man, Ableton has this feature. You could just reverse everything and then do this. And, you know, I would still be calling the homies. And so the fact that I can actually share it on this level is just like a complete blessing.
Yeah. I think for producers in particular, community is important. A lot of people, especially young producers, 15, 16, 17, they come into the game and they don't know how to establish that. Like, so, you know, kind of what you do is you create this space where people can like find their people. You know what I mean? So that's really dope. So, questions? Come on up to the mic. You still want to ask your question now that you got to come to the spotlight?
I mean, it's fine. Okay, so I wanted to ask, how do you like start your platform? So say you're like just trying to release music and you're just starting out, like what are some steps that you think that are absolutely necessary to get you started?
I would say definitely getting your music together, you know, making sure the music is dope, making sure it sounds good. I would say getting your social media stuff together, figuring out what kind of video, you know, kind of video content you want to come out with. You know, I always kind of say, if you're going to release a project, kind of figure out what your rollout is. If you just kind of want to release singles and kind of figure out what people are liking from you, that's a good idea. And if you want to release an album, maybe kind of look at some of your favorite artists and figure out what their rollout plan is. Like a lot of big artists, if you see Ariana Grande, she has 4 videos ready, and they're promoting this, you know, on her page. You watch Summer Walker, and she had that album that was like going around and traveling. Yeah. And so it's like maybe it's finding some type of cool competition. A lot of people do dances or whatever. It's kind of figuring out like what is going to be your rollout plan, figuring out your vibe, what your aesthetic is visually. You know, it's like, do you have a vintage vibe and everything's kind of like a retro feel, or is it like new age and modern? Is it kind of like everything is like tattered and like film grainy, or is it super bright and flashy? It's kind of like what represents the music and kind of figuring out what statement you want to make. Again, what is your why? You know, what is your why? And that kind of informs what you're going to do. Like a lot of the music I feel like I make music for healing. It's therapeutic. A lot of people, you know, I've had like soldiers who told me like, your music got me through my second tour in Iraq. You know, and it's like, that's really heavy. You know, that's really why I'm in it, you know? And so it's like, if you're trying to help people, then you're like, all right, now what is my, you know, that things fall in line behind you figuring out what your goal and kind of purpose is. And if you don't, I'd say just release songs and figure out what people like. And then once they start coming back, then you'll realize like, okay, like me, I just learned on my feet. I would say learn on your feet. Don't worry about having a perfect game plan and figuring it all out. And like, I need to have everything figured out. And it's like, you can have everything figured out, and then you release stuff, and it's like, oh, you know, some people like really try to figure out dubstep, and then it just died right when they perfected it, you know. And it's like, probably don't want to chase the trend so hard, you know.
Well, I was gonna say, be a tastemaker, right? You have good taste, and you curate your own taste, and what you show people is, I have dope taste. You should consume what I consume. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Definitely. You killed that vocal earlier. She sang on the beat earlier. It was so dope. I have to play it for y'all in a little bit. She killed it.
Hey, what's going on?
How you doing? My name is Bruce. I go by Owit.
What up with you, man?
For independent artists, for people who want to do everything by themselves, who, like you said, create because they have to, do you feel like the time never stops? Like, do you feel like you have to create and put out your syncing, put out your royalties, make sure your royalties, your paperwork is all, your licensing, that's what I'm saying. Like, for the people who love to create but don't love to do the extra outside work, do you feel like that help is needed, or do you feel like you can still do it by yourself?
I would say you have to inform yourself, or somebody's gonna take you. They're gonna take you. You know, the person you say, oh, but they got me, they're gonna handle the business, that's gonna be the one that takes you. You know? You're like, but he's my cousin, that's the reason why he's gonna take you. You know what I'm saying? It's like, literally, this is how it works, you know? Or if it's somebody that's not, and you're like, well, it's somebody I trust or whatever, it's like, if somebody knows more than you, they can hold things over your head, they can take advantage of you. It's like, put yourself in a power position. That's what we're teaching, is like, just learn the basics about a PRO. You know, we had a kid yesterday, we were asking what his goals were, and he was like, you know, not knocking him, he was like, my goal is to sign to a PRO. He's like, I've been telling this kid for 8 months. I'm like, that's a to-do list thing, not a goal. Like, you should have done that within the past 8 months. Do it tonight when you go home, then set some actual goals of what you want to do with your career, because the basics can't be a goal. The basics is the fundamental.
I'm processing the stuff you've been saying this weekend, right? And you talk, one of the things you say is be ready for your opportunity. If you're not ready to handle your business, you're not ready for your opportunity.
Yeah, and a lot of people want to get into people like, oh, I want to sign to this person, I want to do that. And it's like, do you really? You know, it's like a lot of people want to sign to other rappers, and I grasp it. You know, a cosign helps out a lot, but you're dealing with an artist, you know, and it's like,
they're finicky, they're flaky, they're
it's
moody.
an unstable situation, you know, and then you go as they go. So if they're hot, you're hot, and then they're not hot, you're not hot. And so
and,
it's
and
again,
if they're not hot, they're not going to put you in front of them.
Exactly. They'll make you sit behind and wait on them to get back hot before you get back hot.
yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that you can control and take in your destiny, and that's what we're trying to show people is like, you can register your own songs, find sync companies yourself, send them out yourself, and what happens if it just randomly gets placed in a movie trailer, an Ice Cube movie or something, and now you got people going to your record, and now these labels are like, who is this person with this hot record? And now you got the power, and because you weren't in a rush to sell your stuff, because what was it somebody else said when you told them I was coming? They're like,
And it was like, well, is he signing people or are we just performing? And I'm just like, dog.
I'm not signing people. And my initial response was, why are you in such a rush to give up your ownership?
I wouldn't do that at all.
You know, but no, that's people. Like their first thing is, I want to sign to a major, and it's like, do you know how little you get off of that?
Exactly.
You know, it's like really taking a bad loan, and at a certain point, it's a good proposition. You know, but until you get to a certain point, it doesn't make sense. And really, we're trying to show work till you get to a partnership.
You had somebody sign to you. Can you tell that story a little bit?
Pierre Bourne?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I found Pierre Bourne at audio school, and he played me a beat. And the first thing I said was, don't sample. It's dope, but don't sample no more. And I signed him. We worked. He watched this for like 8 months and kind of saw how we work with musicians, how we create textures with the samples and stuff. And like about 8 months later, he came out with Magnolia, you know, a record that he didn't sample on, that he owns 100% on the producer side of. You know, and to see somebody take the advice and run with it, you know, that's why I'm here. You know, I want people that care. And, you know, if you care, I care.
I want to make the point about, you said when it was time, you let him out of his contract, right?
Oh, yeah.
But you didn't have to.
No.
Speaking of getting signed, what could you have done?
I could have held him under it. You know, and it was like, the thing was.
And what was the terms?
I don't want to say exactly, but the terms were very favorable to me, and I didn't know he didn't go back and forth with my lawyer. And so after the record came out, then this comes out, and I'm like, oh. And so I'm like, I don't want to hold you under that because you didn't know what you signed. Yeah. Now, in the contract, it says have a lawyer read, you know, but at the time, you know, he was green, and a lot of people are, and they're just hungry, and they're just signing stuff. But I let him out on a very amicable, very small thing. And because of that, immediately, you know, he was able to be in a very, you know, a whole different tax bracket. You know, it was like immediately just like that, you know, and it's like one of those things of where I'm constantly saying, you know, people say the industry is full of sharks. I'm here to prove you don't have to be one. You don't have to be one. There's a better way, and if we all do good business and lift each other up, that's how this is going to work. You know, it's like us sharing information and saying, we're not playing on the level playing field. artists are not on the same playing field. Artists and producers are not on the same playing field as lawyers and the rest of storied music and people who know this stuff.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to level the playing field and say, this is what to look out for. This is how to make better music. This is how to get prepared. And this is how to empower yourself and take control of your own destiny. Because a lot of people were looking to other people to do things. But it's like, if you do it yourself or find somebody you can delegate it to, not specifically business, but other things, you know, maybe you got somebody that shoots videos for you, whatever, the more you just have control of your own career and your own life. And then you can't blame other people. My thing is, I always wanted it to be, if I failed or succeeded, it was on me. You know, I never want to be, I worked so hard for this company and then they went bankrupt. And, you know, it's like, no, I invested in Burn One Incorporated. And in everything that I've worked in is some type of partnership, you know? And it's like, I always try to bring more value to the table, but it's always like a together thing. You know, it's never something I'm going to get myself lost in.
Yeah, I believe in that 100%, 100%. When you think about making better music, when you think about mixing better music, how would you give an upcoming artist mixing tools, or like not even like general help, but like general like theory on how to mix, like how to connect your voice with the music, how to make somebody you know how to make good music, you know what good music sounds like, but you want to make your voice sound professional in a sense. How would you give that tip or that tool or that theory to somebody?
I would say learn the fundamentals. You know, as far as mixing goes, it's about separation and sound. Yeah. And it's about not having, like, if you have a vocal, you hear there's all this low end on my vocal, but it's not super low because they got some point of it's rolled off, you know? If there wasn't some type of high-pass filter, it'd be really low and super rumbly. And so in a lot of vocals, people just don't roll that off. And so basically, you can look at a mix as like a cup of water. That's how I look at it. You can only fill it up so much. And so it's like, if you fill it up and all the frequencies have their own space, it's gonna fill up in a nice way and it's gonna look like a clear, you know, to me, visually, it looks clear. And if not, it looks muddy, and that's kind of like what you hear. And so if you have a bass line, a live bass line in an 808, one goes low, one goes high. It's the only option. You don't have an option of two things. And really, you can look at music in 4 octaves. You got like the sub, you got the mid, you know, kind of mid-low, you know, where the, so sub-low, you got 808, whatever. Then you got the mid-kick, then you got the mid-high, which is where the vocal is, then you got the high-high. And if you look, it's really all the 4 octaves on the keyboards, right? And so it's like, if you're looking in that way, you're like, all right, what is filling up what's serving what purpose? And you kind of listen to the music, you're like, what's the hierarchy of the music? This sample is the main music, or this sound is the main sound. So I need to have this. Let me solo it real quick. Don't solo it for too long. Don't solo it for 20 minutes and work on the kick. Solo it for 5 seconds and hear, oh, you know, a lot of times I'll pull up FabFilter Pro Q. And so I'm listening and looking at the same time, which I don't always say, but I want to just look real quick and see what's happening. And I'm like, oh, this is what's going on. And a lot of times, the first thing I do on every sound is I start pulling in like this. And at different sounds, depending on what point, I'm just grabbing different frequencies. I'm rolling high and low off. And so a lot of people don't know on the vocal, you don't need really past like, you know, 16K. You don't need that. And on a rap vocal, it's just gonna make it sound too bright and too modern. And so there's a lot of techniques. There's a lot of things, you know, to me, I study the masters. Mix with the masters, that's a good one. Masterclass, I get a lot of my information from interviews. And so I study people. I want to be like, learn about their heroes. I study them. And then a lot of the stuff I learned about techniques. We were just trying this Hans Zimmer thing earlier today. They were saying on the Inception, he was saying on the Inception soundtrack how he got that brump sound. Because they opened the piano, they had a horn section play around the piano. They put a brick on the sustain pedal and held a chord, and they all went brump. And they played a bunch of takes and stacked it up or whatever. But the piano strings create this resonance when you hold them down that's really cool. It almost sounds like a cathedral. And so we had everybody in there stomping and clapping, and you know, and so it's like, I'm just trying and applying. I don't know how to do that technique. I'm just trying it, and the things that I know of the fundamentals help inform how I can get that to a better sound quicker. You know, like he recorded something even before we did that of one of the kids playing piano on top of a beat we had already started, and I filtered out the low and top, put this fuzz wah, reversed into this, and he was like, what? You know, and it was like, but if I left all the frequencies, it would have completely conflicted with everything else, but I made it like this. You know, it's like, it's only like taking up this much space. And so I'd figure out things that are easy. Like there's plugins like Goodhertz Lossy, and it kind of has this thing that desamples, kind of downsamples like an MP3 bit crusher. But the main thing is got this real simple EQ in the middle. It's like a high and low, and you could just slide the sliders. And almost every first sound, if I don't use Pro EQ, Pro Q, I'll just pull that up. And it's just getting that separation in sound and then understanding compression, the basics of it. You know, it's like, to me, parallel compression is way better than regular compression. And understanding, like, say you got a vocal and you do a take. We were saying this earlier. Say you start off and you're like real confident. And you're like, and you're right here. And then you get a little less confident on the next take and you're right here. Instead of depending on a compressor, like, to level it out, that's not what you want to use a compressor for. Clip gain, turn that part up. Yeah. You know, it's like, turn it up and then the compressor doesn't have to work as hard. Exactly. And now you're picking compressors that are giving you tone and textures and feel, and you can kind of, you know, and then you learn certain things like RVox is always going to make a rap vocal sound good. It just is. It just gets it right in your face, you know. RVox, waves, yeah. R compressor, it's another one. They got like a 50-to-1 ratio on there that just brings the vocal right here. And it's like certain things, knowing different styles of music, like rap music, there's something about when you snatch it up and have it really held like this, it stays right in your face, and that's what holds your attention. That's the rap vocal thing. Yeah. And so doing that without it crunching and sounding over compressed is the key. And so maybe it's like, if you're personally mixing your own vocals, watching some videos, watch Tony Maserati. Don't watch random dude who hasn't accomplished anything. You know, like, the reason why I'm doing this is because I see a lot of snake oil salesmen, the people who don't make dope beats or haven't accomplished anything, or, you know, trying to tell people how to do stuff. And it's like, no, study your heroes, study people, you know, what song do you like? Look up the credits, see who mixed it. Go find some interviews, you know, look up Sound on Sound magazine. There's all these resources. In week 15 of Music Monetization, we talk about how to research and discernment. We live in the information age. There's so much information, but where do you get it from? Who do you trust? You know, my thing is, I only take what I need. And so I know if I watch a 15-minute YouTube video or whatever, I may only need 2 minutes of that. Yeah. And so it's like my brain completely throws away the rest of it. You know, and some people are like, man, I don't know how you watch that 15 minutes. It's like, that 2 minutes is money right there, bro. Yeah. You know, it's like, you have no idea. And it's like, right when I need it in some random time, I'll be like, oh, I got this technique, and I can pull it out of the back of my pocket. Exactly. And somebody's like, yo, how'd you do that? I'm like, it's not mine. You know, it's like totally something from somebody else. Something Paul told me or somebody else told me. And so, you know, if you're curious and you want to know, then you're going to excel. And then what we're trying to teach in the class is how to not get taken.
Yeah. So we're definitely up against it. Let's give it up for DJ Bourne one.
Yeah.
Hate to end so abruptly, but we got to get on to the next order of business. So we appreciate y'all coming out. Canopy Club. My co-host, Aniyha Jones.
Hey, y'all.
Yeah.
I'm Lamont Holden. I'm Lamont Holden, a.k.a. TheLetterLBeats, professor of music, audio, and recording technology here at the University of Illinois School of Music in the College of Fine and Applied Arts. That was Campus Culture. Appreciate y'all. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Hey.
Thank you.